All of you know what it's like to have a child, but discussing with them about how the devil wants your heart and the devil desires to have you. And I find myself more often than not having that discussion with Levi when he's being disobedient or just all out mean or just disobeying. I said, son, someone's desiring to have your heart right now. Do you think it's the Lord or is it the devil? And he'll tell me, he said, it has to be the devil. He said, because the Lord wouldn't want me to do wrong. The Lord wouldn't desire for me to disobey or to just be mean. And I said, well, son, do you want the devil to have your heart? He says, no. I said, son, well, you got to fight. You're going to have to fight, and that's the diligence of keeping your heart. And it's not a one-time conversation I have with him. It's usually every day. Every day, I have to sit with him and I just check his pulse. Just say, son, just checking you out to see if the devil's desiring your heart today. Is he? He says, yeah, the devil's after my heart today. I said, it's a continual fight. It's a continual fight in the Christian life. But you know what? There is victory. And I was going to discuss that some tonight, but it seems like very often and I was going to bring it up, where we run from a fight and we give into the fight or just avoid the fight. Well, he called you a soldier, and Paul says, my fellow soldier. A soldier stands and a soldier fights. Now, a soldier fights the right fight. Now, that's not you going looking for a fight, but you should be ready to fight. All right. Proverbs chapter 5. My son, attend unto my wisdom, and bow thine ear to my understanding, that thou mayest regard discretion, and that thy lips may keep knowledge. For the lips of a strange woman drop as a honeycomb, and her mouth is smoother than oil. But her end is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. Her feet go down to death, her steps take hold on hell. Lest thou shouldest ponder the path of life, her ways are movable, that thou canst know them. Hear me now, therefore, O children, and depart not from the words of my mouth. Remove thy way far from her, and come not nigh the door of her house, lest thou give thine honor unto others, and thy years unto the cruel. Lest strangers be filled with thy wealth, and thy labors be in the house of a stranger. And thou mourn at the last, when thy flesh and thy body are consumed. And say, how have I hated instruction, and my heart despised reproof, and have not obeyed the voice of my teachers, nor inclined mine ear to them that instructed me. I was almost all in all evil in the midst of the congregation and assembly. Drink waters out of thine own cistern, and running waters out of thine own well. Let thy fountains be dispersed abroad, and thy rivers of waters in the streets. Let them be only thine own, and not strangers with thee. Let thy fountain be blessed, and rejoice with the wife of thy youth. Let her be as the loving hind and the pleasant roe. Let her breast satisfy thee at all times, and be thou ravished always with her love. And why wait thou, my son? Be ravished with a strange woman, and embrace the bosom of a stranger. For the ways of man are before the Lord, the eyes of the Lord, and he pondereth all his goings. His own iniquity shall take the wicked himself, and he shall be holden with the cords of his sins. He shall die without instruction, and his greatness of his folly he shall go astray. Doyle, will you ask the Lord to bless the evening?
Lord Jesus, thank you so much for love your time, your word, and wisdom.
Amen. Now the first verse there says, my son, attend unto my wisdom, and bow thine ear to my understanding. Now you look at the last verse of this chapter, and you kind of see the results of someone not doing that, or the last two verses there. It says, his own iniquity shall take the wicked himself, and he shall be holden with the cords of his sins. He shall die without instruction, in the greatness of his folly he shall go astray. That's a son who has disregarded instruction. And that's hard. And here's Solomon speaking to a young man, trying to impart some wisdom, trying to impart some instruction. And his desire is that his son will receive that and not go astray from the Lord. And that's a good thing. We need more fathers. We need more men instructing younger men on what is right. Very often we see a lot of the men, even in the Christian realm, they'll tell you point blank, hey, do as I say, not as I do, I'm not perfect. It's kind of a go-to thing to say, well, why can't you be perfect? Why don't you desire to be perfect? Why don't you present yourself as a uniform position, as someone can look at and say, oh, well, he's doing what's right. And you can follow his example. I need those examples. I'm in my 30s. I should be able to look up to men in my 50s. Brother Rick, Brother Rod, and Dad, I should be able to look at you as my example as a Christian man on what I should expect at your age to be. I should follow your lead. Are you leading me in the right way? Is there growth there? Can I follow your instruction? Can I bow my ear to some of your understanding? We need more men. We need more men. And I hate saying a Bible-believing church is big. We only have a few men here. Doyle and the pastor and even Ian, as younger men ourselves, we have men to look up to, and you have men to look up to. You have Brother Dick here tonight. But you notice how few those men are? Where are the men that we can look up to? Where are the men? I fear very often the streets are full with men who have not received instruction, or men that can be followed in knowledge and wisdom and understanding. We need those examples. I need that example. My son, he needs that example from me. But like the domino effect is, it's one behind the other. My son, attend to my wisdom and bow thine ear to my understanding. And that's to bow down. That implies a certain amount of humbling is necessary for the person to receive that knowledge and to receive that wisdom. There has to be a humility to it. You know what your mission is tonight? When you come to church, you come here tonight to listen to someone preach. And there's an admission there saying that there's something that I need, or there's something that I desire that maybe that I'm lacking. Maybe I'm overstepping here. Maybe you don't feel that way. I kind of hope you do feel that way. I hope you come to church because you need something. You don't go to the grocery store because you have nothing to do on Saturday. You go because you need something. You go because there's a desire that I need something for my growth. I need something for just my livelihood. You go to the doctor because you need something. Do you not? So when you go to church, why do you go? I hope you go because you need something. And there's a humility to it. There's a humbleness to it if you're to receive something. I remember down in Bible school and going to blowouts, and I remember I hear people talk about what's the best revival meeting you've been to, and I look back at a lot of the revival meetings I've been to, and the ones that have meant the most to me, the revival meetings or special meetings that have meant the most are the ones I prepared for the most. When I prepared for a big meeting or a revival meeting, I spent time in prayer. I went to the Lord, Lord, I'm in need. Lord, I need help. Lord, I'm desiring something from you. If I don't get something from you, I'm going to be without. I'm going to lack. I'm in a bad way. Lord, help me. And I found myself sometimes not being in the right frame of mind going into a certain meeting or sitting down at a meeting listening to a preacher. It's like, well, who's this guy? Let's see if this guy can bless me if you can. I try not to be that way when a preacher comes up like, I'm not sure about this guy. I don't know if I like him or not. Well, I'm probably not going to get anything. I've invested zero into that meeting. And what the Father is telling the Son here says, bow thine ear to understanding. There has to be humility to it where you want to receive something of it. What came you here tonight to see? Does it read shaking in the wind? What did you come here for? Did you prepare to come here? You got up, you got dressed, you put your church clothes on, you tucked your shirt in, you washed your hair, you took a shower, you got ready, got in the car, came up here, I suppose because you needed something. And my prayer is, Lord, if you don't give me something, they will get nothing. And that's my prayer as I prepare it. I know that's the pastor's prayer as he prepares these messages. It will do you no good to receive a perfect outline, 3-point message with a neat poem and a few jokes with it. It'll do no good for you if the Lord's not in it. If I had not humbled myself and said, Lord, I need something, and I need something from you. So right off the bat, the father is telling the son, you're going to have to humble yourself. You're going to have to humble your ear. Bow down thine ear and listen. Oftentimes I speak to my kids or talking to them and they're not even looking at me. He's halfway listening. And I'll say, Levi, are you listening to me? He says, yeah, yep. And I just have to stop him and I hold his face. I said, son, I need you to listen to me. You know, I think it's best to put yourself before the Lord. You know you're before the Lord tonight? You know, very often I listen to how a lot of people pray, and I noticed there was a guy, a friend of mine down in Florida, and he would pray, Lord, I come before you right now. And I need your help. And I noticed he always started off every prayer that way. And I pray that way sometimes. But I got to thinking about that, coming before the Lord. And, you know, you're always before the Lord. Everything you've done today, every action, every thought, every word uttered off your lips was before the Lord today. All things was seen of him today. But were you really before him? Did he have all your attention? You know, there's a time that you need to humble yourself and bow your ear and says, Lord, you got all my attention right now. There's a time of humility and say, Lord, I want to have a singleness of mind. I want to spend some time with you. And if you're to receive instruction of the Father and some wisdom and regard discretion, you're going to have a humbleness of ear and mind and focus on him. Distractions are left and right. When we're at the house and we got things going on, and I'm telling Whitney, I say, I'm about to study, I got to work on something for church, and all of a sudden, everything just it turns into a circus. It's like monkeys start swinging from the ceilings or something, and just everything goes nuts. I need to do this. Well, now I need to get a few sticks of wood in because the fire's going out. Well, now I need to go grab this. Oh, somebody needs something? Oh, okay. Oh, somebody's calling? Oh, I need to talk to them. I forgot I needed to talk to them. No, it's just one thing, a distraction. You know, it is so important for you to have a singleness of thought toward the Lord and be before him. All right, my son, attend to my wisdom and bow thine ear to my understanding, that thou mayest regard discretion. Well, just on the thought of the bowing of the ear, also, you got to beware of the itching ears and of the being dull of hearing and the lack of understanding. Over in 2 Timothy 4:3, for the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but after their own lust they shall heap to themselves teachers having itching ears. And you got to be careful of the dull ear. Look over at Acts chapter 28. Acts 28, verse 26, saying, go unto this people and say, hearing ye shall hear and not understand, and seeing ye shall see and not perceive. For the heart of this people is waxed gross, and their ears are dull of hearing, and their eyes have they closed, lest they should see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and understand with their heart, and should be converted, and I should heal them. Be it known therefore unto you that salvation of God is sent to the Gentiles, and they will hear it. So talking about someone being dull of hearing, and having teachers having itching ears. You're going to have to humble that ear. You're going to have to bow down that ear. There needs to be some humility. And that's hard for a young man. Because a young man, I was talking to the junior church today, I said, the young ones, you think you know everything. And I said, but you don't. So it's harder for you to receive something when you think you've already got something. If you don't think you need something, it's hard for you to receive something. And we were talking about, it's like, well, we're figuring out when the Lord was crucified. It was at 33 and a half years old. It was 33 and a half. And I said, that's the perfect age. And the kid says, why is that? And I says, well, when you're young, you have all your strength, and when you're old, you have a lot of wisdom. I said, and that kind of meets to the point where you have both of them that coincide equally together. I said, that's just a perfect individual. 33, I said, I'm past that now. Some of you are farther past that, but hey, you got more wisdom now. Verse 2 says, that thou mayest regard discretion, and thy lips may keep knowledge. The young man is generally simple, but he thinks that he's wise. Now remember, discretion is the ability to sift through the facts in order to make a judgment on something. And I know you've watched a movie where it might say at the beginning of it, viewer discretion is advised. Well, that's what discretion is to be able to sift through the facts on what is so. A kid can, Levi will watch something on TV he'll watch the Transformers. He likes the transforming and making something. And, they got the cartoon version of it, and they got that, the live animated deal. It looks like it's real. And he looks at me and says, Dad, is this real? Is this real life? It's like, no, son, it's not. And that's what that viewer discretion is advised. He can't sift through the facts to know if that's real or not. He doesn't know. And that's what a young man needs to hear on what is real and what is not. Because a young man can't always sift through the facts. It's dangerous for a young man. The ages of young men, when they get to be about 12 years old to about 20 years old, they think they know everything. And they think they can figure something out, but they can't really sift through the facts yet. They need instruction. We live in an age that completely disregards discretion. Now, like I talked about, discretion is sifting through the facts, is having discernment based upon the truth and the facts of the matter. And we live in an age where that's completely disregarded, where the facts don't matter. We're now based the truth and things on people's personal opinions and people's feelings and emotions and circumstances, and we'll say, well, that's the truth to you. That's your truth. That's foolishness. That's very foolish. I was talking to a coworker of mine, her husband. He works at a public school there in Davis County. And there's a young girl there who thinks she's a unicorn. And they let her believe such. And every day she wears a giant, it's funny, we'll talk about unicorns tonight. She wears a giant unicorn thing on her head. No one else is allowed to wear a cap in the building. You can't wear hats, you can't wear caps, but she can because she's a unicorn. And so they don't address it, they don't deal with it. He says every day she just wears that nasty, dirty, big old thing on her head. And the teachers, okay. The Board of Education says, okay. The government has allowed it, okay. And then a little farther north, above Davis County, they're dealing with issues where kids are now thinking that they're cats and thinking that they're dogs. Anybody of y'all have heard about this yet? They're talking about the Board of Education, and they're pushing for it to have litter boxes installed in the classrooms for kids who feel like they're cats or dogs, because they're like, well, what are the kids really hurting to believe that? We're limiting their imagination, but no, the kids and the parents say, no, he believes he's a cat. He needs to be treated like a cat. Y'all are being mean to my kid. So they're just educated. I'm not mad at the kid, because I hear people at work, those kids just need set straight. No, those kids don't need set straight. Those parents, that Board of Education, and the system needs to be set straight. Someone with an education, someone who is supposedly smart, is allowing that. And that should kind of show you where our education system, or where our perception of what education is and our value of what education is. We think education, is of great value. Educated people are making decisions on litter boxes in classrooms, guys. That's where we are. There's no discretion. There's no sifting through the facts on, no, that's wrong. And we're not going to do that. Get over it. I would not make a very good teacher. Johnny, you think you're a dog, right? I said, we put down a dog one time. I said, we had a cat too. Oh, you think you're a cat, Sally? Oh, you're a cat? My dad backed over our cat one time with the truck and just shrugged his shoulders. You can't sift through the facts anymore. We've lost our ability to have some discretion on what is right, what is wrong, sifting through the facts where the facts don't matter. You know what? The Christian not only should have discretion and be able to look through the facts and sift through the truth, but he also should be able to speak up. Back in verse 2, it says that thou mayest regard discretion, and that thy lips may keep knowledge. It's not just that thy heart should keep knowledge and thy understanding in your head and your feelings towards something. There's an expression of keeping the truth. Part of you keeping discretion and keeping the truth is you opening your mouth. Opening your mouth and saying, no, that is wicked, that is vile, that is wrong, that is against God, that is against things that are pure and holy and clean, and it is wrong. We're in a society as Christians where we've come to the point where we no longer put our finger on the thing and say, that is wrong. And Christians are no longer dealing with sins, or even the preachers bring up specific sins. I listened to a lot of preachers here lately, some local, some a little farther out, just to get an idea of how they are addressing sin from the pulpit, and sin is no longer addressed from the pulpit. You don't hear them talking about young people shacking up anymore. They don't tell them that's wrong. Why? Because half the congregation is shacking up, or the kids are shacking up, or the preacher's son is shacking up. So they throw that out. They don't deal with drinking. Well, so a few of them, they like to social drink, so we just don't even go. There's so many other things to preach on. Let's not even talk about drinking. Let's throw it out. And become where the church is no longer putting their finger on specific. That's what the preacher ought to do. He ought to say, it's wicked, it's wrong, it's against God. That's not my feelings, that's truth. Homosexuality is a wicked, foul, disgusting sin, and God hates it. I can say that without blinking. Why? Because that's not my feelings. That's what God says. It's wrong. It's vile. And we have churches today where they sit side by side in the services, and it's all right. I have a cousin that had to come to church. This is the church she attended down in Alabama, and she's having to sit by herself up there with her kids while her husband is sitting with another woman in the back pew, and they are still married. And the preacher says, well, the Lord will just work it out. We're just not going to bring it up. We don't want to, because he tithes big, she tithes big. It's wicked. It's vile. It's wrong. But it's not being preached on anymore. The Christian should open his mouth. All right, pick it up in verse 3. For the lips of a strange woman drop as a honeycomb, and her mouth is smoother than oil. Now, this term, this strange woman, is going to show up 9 times in your King James Bible and 8 times in the book of Proverbs. We have already seen this strange woman show up one time back in chapter 2, verse 16, if you'll look there. Or we'll actually pick it up in verse 10 where it says, when wisdom entereth into thine heart, and knowledge is pleasant unto thy soul, discretion shall preserve thee, understanding shall keep thee, to deliver thee from the way of the evil man, from the man that speaketh froward things, who leave the paths of righteousness, to walk in the way of darkness, who rejoice to do evil, and delight in the frowardness of the wicked, whose ways are crooked, and they are forward in their paths. To deliver thee from the strange woman, even from the stranger which flattereth with her words, which forsake the guide of her youth, and forgetteth the covenant of her God. For her house inclineth to death, her paths unto the dead. The practical application is a harlot. Now there's a practical and there's a spiritual application to this here, but just practically, that a harlot will cause you trouble. A strange woman will do you bad. And this is a father speaking to a son and says, you need to stay away from a woman like that. My father, as a young boy, I remember being 14 or 15, he didn't have to go into graphic detail. I remember us going through town one time, and there was a certain kind of woman standing there, and I've already had my thoughts about that kind of woman, and Dad just noticed that I had looked over there, and he says, son, you stay away from that kind of woman. He says, that kind of, we say, oh, that's so judgmental. No, that's good advice. He says, that kind of woman will break you down, will cause you to lose your life and lose everything you have. And my dad wasn't some great Bible believer or Bible preacher, but he's saying that he needed to impart some instruction to a young boy. I needed that instruction. He said, that's the wrong kind of woman. At first, she is sweet and smooth. Look back at Proverbs chapter 5, verse 3. It's positive right off the bat. For the lips of a strange woman drop as a honeycomb. Her mouth is smoother than oil. But her end is bitter as wormwood. And wormwood is actually a plant that has kind of a woody stalk to it. And I looked it up, kind of grayish leaves, and it has a poisonous element to it, and it's often used in distilling alcohols and things like that, and it has just a bitter, dirty taste to it. Has a nasty taste to it. Her end is bitter. The world doesn't show you the end of a thing. The world only shows you the beginning of a thing, the good part of a thing. You know, you listen to country music on the radio. I hear it at work all the time, and it's generally about a guy meeting up with a girl, and things are going on. It says, I met her at the bar, and we went out that night, and we danced cheek to cheek, and it tells you all this love and how things are great, and it was a good time, and alcoholism. It doesn't show you the end of it. It shows you the beginning of it. The beginning of it doesn't look that bad. The end of it's a mess. The end of it's a mess. A good father will warn his son. You know what? The world will provoke that perversion. The world will say, oh, you met old so-and-so down the street? Yeah, I met her. Yeah, I know her. And they'll laugh about older guys. This is something I got a lot of. Growing up, being about 17, 18 years old, working at manufacturing places, guy popped me on her shoulder and started talking to me about, he said, oh, girl, man, you need to go talk to so-and-so down there. She'll treat you real good. Just saying stuff, just filthy things. Oh, go meet up with so-and-so. Hey, and mocking a lot of things that God has said were right and clean, and just making perverted remarks. I don't even want to, I'm trying to be careful with my words right now, but you understand where I'm going with that. And a lot of filthy men will promote that stuff, fornication, shacking up, messing around, skipping around with different women, and it's wicked. Do you know what that is? It's perversion. And a lot of men won't be straight with you and tell you what it is, that it's perverted. No, when we say the word somebody's a pervert, you often in your head say it's acquainted with somebody messing around with an underage kid or messing around doing something real dirty. Well, do you know what? A man that is sleeping around and messing around is a pervert. Why? Because he has taken something that God has said was holy and right, the sanctity of marriage, and he has perverted that thing. He has twisted that right thing. And he is a pervert. And that doesn't just go for the men, it goes for the woman. She steps out on her husband, or she's the harlot of the text here. She has perverted something that is clean. It's a pervert. But you know what? You even say that in a modern church today. You say, well, it's perverted for two people to live together and not get married. Well, don't say that. Don't say that. That's not. No, it's perverted and it's wrong. But you don't want to hear somebody call somebody a pervert. That's not nice. You know, it's okay. They're doing the best they can. No, it's perverted and it's wrong. And I want to keep on telling them. I want to tell these young boys that. I'll tell Ian that, and I'll tell James and Serenity and all them that you need to keep yourself clean. God has prepared a marriage and a marriage bed for a man and a woman, and your body belongs to God until you get married. Then your body belongs to your husband or to your wife. You're not to pass that off to someone else. That's perverted. It's perverted. I think that we should get at least one amen out of that. Is that perverted to you? I hope it is. Now, doctrinally, Solomon speaking to his son here, And the doctrinal application of this harlot, the strange woman, is a picture of religious apostasy. She's a picture of something that is false, something that is wrong, something that is twisted. Just like a harlot has turned something that God has made pure into something perverted, false religion, and these cults have taken something that was true and they have perverted it, and they have twisted it. And that's something you need to get from the text there, is that it's smoother than oil. It's sweet to the taste at first, but the end of it is bitter, and there's death, and there's hell. I said, well, can't we all just get along? I said, I don't know why you got to bash the Catholics. I don't know why you got to talk bad about the Church of Christ. My grandmother was a Church of Christ. My daddy was a primitive Baptist. I don't know why you got to bash the primitive Baptist. Can't we all? We're all just trying to work to get to the same place. No, we're not. You better be careful working to get to the. I've heard that many times. Well, we're all just working to get to the same place. Well, you better be careful. You're going to end up there. I'm not working to get anywhere. You know what Catholicism is? Is a perverted religion. The Church of Christ is a perverted religion. My grandfather was a primitive Baptist pastor. And so was many of his sons and his family. It's a perverted religion. Why do you say it's perverted? Well, because they took something that was right and they made it crooked. And they made it wrong. They took salvation out. You don't have to receive Christ. You're a preordained, you're predestined, that's child of God. It's Calvinism. There is no you receiving Christ at all. There is no evangelism. What is it? It's perverted. It's crooked. It's typified as a harlot. And it starts off as sweet to the taste, but they're so sweet. They're just such sweet people. They're just like us. It starts off sweet. Then it's damaging. We look at the places here in Proverbs and we can see that there, that apostasy. Look at chapter 5. We see it here in our text, 5 verse 3. It says, the lips of a strange woman drop as a honeycomb. Her mouth is smoother than oil. And look over at chapter 6, verse 24, where it says, to keep thee from the evil woman, from the flattery of the tongue of a strange woman. There's flattery. There's flattery. I wish I could do it like he does, Joel Osteen. God loves you just, Doyle, God is just oozing with love. He loves you just the way you are. Don't change one thing, brother. He loves you just the way you are. It's pretty good, isn't it? I would do a Joyce Meyer, but I can't bring my voice that low. God, but that's what it is flattery. Oh, you're okay. Oh, y'all don't want to get married? You're still trying each other out? That's fine. It's fine. Y'all want to have a kid together, but you don't want to get married? I understand. God's going to love that baby just like any other baby. You know, a lot of truth, but it's flattery. You know what? Chris and I think we could fill this church up if we would just lay off the whole preaching against hell and sin and wickedness and truth. Just lay off a little bit, brother. You need to chill out over there. Getting all fired up about sin and all that. Studying your guts out all week long and firing away just like you're firing away. It's running everybody off. Stop it. We want to bring them all in. Bring them. Back God's truck up. He wants to fill you up. What is that? It's a picture of a harlot. God, when he talks about that apostasy, he talks of it like it's a dirty woman. Look at chapter 7, verse 5. Look at verse 4. Say unto wisdom, thou art my sister, and call understanding thy kinswoman. Verse 5, that thou may keep thee from the strange woman, from the stranger, which flattereth with her words. You know, Doyle, you sure do got some big old muscles on you. That's what she'll say. You got to watch them. You know. Just, oh, there's no other one like you out there. I've talked to a dozen guys. There's nobody like you. Or a guy pick up lines with girls says, I've never felt this way about a girl like I feel about you. It's a lie. My dad, he always kind of mocked it, I guess. He'd say, son, you got to watch those women. Here's a man that the Lord gave 6 daughters, and he says, they'll be hugging on you, telling you they love you, and she'll be waving at some man down the street like that right there. He says, you got to watch them. You got to watch them. He said, you got to watch them. Use the word love very loosely. Like I've told you before, in Montgomery, Alabama, you can ride down the Eastern Boulevard and you'll see a big giant red sign and there's a big heart and it says love. You get closer and closer to it, you see the words on it, says things I don't really want to say tonight. But you can go in there and buy these things. That's not what love is. That's not what love is. That's a perverted, twisted mess. So not only, the practical sense, you better stay away from that harlot, but you better stay away from false doctrine. One thing I appreciate about our crowd is our crowd got some messed up folks in it. Our crowd does. But what I appreciate about our crowd, it can refer back to the book. No matter what happens, I can still walk out with the book. I still have the truth, and we can agree on the book. We can agree on truth. We have some common ground on what is right, and we can say it's right. You say that's judgmental. He who is spiritual judgeth all things. Know ye not that you will judge angels? We can make judgment because we have the truth. We have something that's real. And you should be real cautious when you see some red flags and take note when someone is trying to butter you up. I'm from the South. Somebody's flattering you, telling you how great you are and how wonderful you are, they're buttering you up. Well, I'm from the South. You butter up something, you're getting ready to fry it in a pan or something. You're about to cook that thing. You're about to sear it. Be careful when somebody's buttering you up. They're about to cook you. They're about to cook you. Buttering you up, telling you how great you are. And that's that flattery. And you be careful with those flattering words. The context surrounding this woman is always a warning that she will pull you away from the truth and righteousness, and she'll pull you into darkness. And we've seen that back in chapter 2. There, chapter 2, and verse 13, or verse 12, to deliver thee from the way of the evil man, from the man that speaketh forward things, who leave the paths of righteousness. They leave the paths of righteousness to do what? To walk in the ways of darkness. Man loved darkness rather than light, for his deeds were evil. Neither cometh through the light, lest his deeds be reproved. Whose ways are crooked. They are forward in their paths, to deliver thee from the strange woman, even the stranger which flattereth with her words, which forsake the guide of her youth. That pulls you away from the truth, pulls you away from what is right. The allurements of false religions are pictured of a harlot trying to seduce a son, a harlot trying to draw him away. And we'll see in other places in the text where she waiteth for him. She's going to catch him like putting out a net, trying to catch him. It's a wicked thing. Something, it's not really a side note, but when I was lost, in the high school that I went to, I might end up finishing with that, and we'll pick it up next time, but when I was in school, we had health class, and they had sex education. And they had a woman come in, and she was probably in her 30s, about my age, and she was discussing rape and different things and STDs, and she was going all that, and she says, Now, I'm here to tell every one of you, you're all in danger of catching AIDS and STDs. And nobody said nothing. There's some young girl in our class, she's sitting over to the side. She says, I'm not in danger. She says, everybody's in danger. I says, I'm not. She says, I don't mess around. She says, I'm waiting to get married. And not only did the woman laugh that was presenting that material, but so did my health teacher, our coach that was sitting over at his desk, and all the class laughed and laughed at her. This young girl was a Christian. We laughed at her because, according to everyone, the presenter of the information and the teacher of the class thought it was impossible for a young girl to keep herself clean, and it's better just to figure you could catch it. And we're going to give you the instruments to help you protect yourself. What is that? It's perversion. It's wickedness. They didn't teach abstinence in our health class. That's not what they taught. They prepared you to engage in things that were crooked and perverted and against God. It's wrong. But that's the allurement. That's the desire and those things to pull you away from what is right. And that's the world. The world is totally against young men like Ian and young people like the Cochran kids. The world is against you, but praise the Lord, you have the book, you have the Lord, and He's on your side, and He's rooting for you. And as men in this church, we ought to support the young men. As women in this church, you ought to support the young women in that endeavor to live clean and to live right. All right, I think I want to stop right there tonight. I think we'll just close out. Pastor, will you close out in prayer?